Hi there. The Great Seal of the Demiurge. We're here to understand rather than to judge or condemn. Uh, I was once at a wedding, a Greek Orthodox wedding, Russian Orthodox wedding, and the priest had to spit 3 times on the devil, and which I suppose is like moving away from God in order to protect the circle from evil influences. All pretty kind of pagan stuff, really. And so we're not going to spit on the devil 3 times or any amount of times. We're just going to understand what's really going on with the prison ship in which the soul is, according to Gnosticism, trapped. And so here we have, every bit of the symbol is significant. That's the first thing about symbols, I suppose, occult symbols or sigils. So first of all, a bit of an apology. This is supposed to be a circle rather than two, well, a semicircle and an ellipse. It's supposed to be a pure circle, and I was going to redraw it as a pure circle, but then I thought I'd leave it because why have in nature there isn't a pure circle. It's an ellipse or a cycle or a spiral. I mean, the Earth isn't circular. It's sort of it kind of wobbles a bit. So I suppose this is to reflect nature itself and the cycles of time, the spirals of time, the ellipses, the inward ellipses of time and space and matter for that matter, and the cycles of life cycles, which are again are more spirals and not perfect cycles, as it were. Although pretty perfect, I mean, the life cycle of a salmon is pretty accurate, really, down to the more or less the day of daylight, the amount of daylight. So, it's pretty accurate. But so anyway, this is a semi. It's supposed to be a circle here, really, but I didn't want to make it a pure circle. And it's interesting because we have here the sort of the three modes here. We have preservation, we have creation, and we have destruction. And they're the three forces or modes of nature. And these are three points within each sphere of influence of these forces, which represent our point of view. So, from my point of view, I could be being preserved right now, which I am in the sort of Cartesian sense that God is preserving me even as I speak, and then also God the Destroyer. So from another point of view, someone else's point of view, they're about to die of COVID, and then from another point of view, a baby is about to be conceived as part of creation and evolution and two male and female cells are coming together, or in the case of plants, it's 3 cells coming together to create life, new life, and the possibility of genetic mutation and therefore of evolution. So we have the 3 points of view here, and then don't forget, of course, within those points, we have like a triangle which represents my point of view, your point of view and our point of view. And when I say our, I mean collective point of view. So we have two individuals and the collective, and each of these has a point of view, has an agenda, if you like, has a right to be, an entitlement, as one might say. So, but from a point of view of just experience, I'm experiencing one or other of these creative forces. And reason why pi is in here, written in capital in uppercase, by the way, whereas mathematically it should be written in lowercase. But the reason why pi is in here is because pi, of course, is the ratio of the circumference of a circle to its diameter, which is usually written 3.14 with a little dot on it, which means that the it's a number which has infinite occurrence or reoccurrence. So however many times, however many places, decimal places you calculate pi, you'll never run out of them. So it's an infinite number. And three is the number of the modes of life. And the reoccurring or infinitely reoccurring number of decimal places to which you can calculate pi represents the fact, or two things. One is that three is never resolved. Is that the significance of this is that three is never resolved, so that the modes of life just keep going round and round and round, and they never sort of stop, as it were. And also the soul, which is trapped in these three modes, is never resolved either. It's never resolved to the lower worlds, and it's trapped in a like a sort of would be an infinite series of numbers, series of decimal points going on and on and on and on. And so that's the significance of that. But pi is written in uppercase. It was usually in lowercase, but an uppercase because it represents two antagonistic forces, the algorithm of antagonism. And they come to zero. Each of them are cut off at a certain point of fighting each other. They dissolve into zero, and so two equals zero might also be written here as well within this seal or sigil. Very important that you get two antagonistic forces and they cancel each other out. But also more complicated than that because after they've cancelled each other out, a third force is created, and so and then another opposite force is created which cancels it out, and so on and so on and so on infinitely. And of course, we have the semicircle here, we have the ellipse, creating a sort of funny circle-like shape to represent the fact that it's more or less an eternal system. And eventually the Earth will be destroyed, obviously, but another Earth will be created somewhere else in the galaxy, which will follow exactly the same or similar trajectory to this one. In terms, but evolution would be different on another planet, but it would be an evolutionary trajectory. But some people have speculated that eventually the energy will come to nothing, complete nothingness, complete blackness, and darkness will rule supreme everywhere, and there will be no more energy. So the second law of thermodynamics will no longer apply because energy will no longer move from one form to another. It'll just be a stagnant pool of energy within a sort of blank universe. Be that as it may, we have here, it's very interesting here that when I first created this seal, I had this idea that of the equilateral of the right angled triangle, which is indicated here. And the line of destruction would be, well, the square of the line of destruction, the hypotenuse, will be equal to the square of the other two sides. Basically, preservation would count for more than creation, but destruction would be the most powerful force of all of the three. And yet, when you put them within a solid sphere or an ellipse or a circle, you find actually that the area of destruction is less than the area of preservation, and certainly less than the area of creation. And indeed, there shouldn't really be a line here to show that preservation and creation sort of run into each other, whereas there's a definite demarcation between destruction and creation. Although, of course, I suppose in nature, from a biochemical point of view, there's really no difference. But the energy of destruction, creation, and preservation flows very seamlessly through from one molecule to the next, from one valent bond between molecules to the next. So, in other words, things. It's like a dance. The universe is sort of dancing, breaking up and dancing, as Jim Morrison would put it. So that, and this little shape here, the sort of upside down T, is symbolic of the whole system, the world to the demiurge, if you like. It's also in traditional occultism the symbol for Earth itself, but Earth to the nth degree, the quality of Earthness, which can be on any level, right up to the spiritual level, because we're talking about the levels of the demiurge, the worlds of the demiurge, not just this world. So I suppose we're sort of, yes, we are combining Gnosticism with Platoism at its fundamental, or these fundamental levels, and so therefore we have a thing. We have creation here. We have the V sign, which is a sort of pro. It's a kind of proto symbol of course, the famous the famous inverse pentagram, which is like the devil's horns, or the burin, the occult power. And we have here a sort of we have here the which is the inverse pentagram is supposed to be the most evil symbol of the world. The second most evil symbol is a trapezium or trapezoid, which is like a cut off triangle, and that's kind of represented here. The four-sided figure. The two sides are parallel, joined together by two straight lines, as I've indicated here. And at each of the four corners, we have the four V's, and then we have a kind of floating sort of an ellipse or semicircle coming down within the trapezium to create a sort of the fifth V. So we have the five V's as indicated here. And we have, the element of air. We have vigor, vigorous thinking, the vigorous desire. One could always put volition here as well, the will to power, in a sort of Nietzschean sense, a vigorous comprehension, a vigorous attainment of thought over one's environment by every sentient being. And then we have vivaciousness, which is a sort of bubbly, effervescent, joie de vivre, kind of emotional attitude, bubbling over with enthusiasm and optimism. And then you have not vicariousness, but voraciousness, which is appetite, which is all-consuming, all-devouring force. So we have the power of consumption, economic consumption. We have the idea of any kind of species, growing exponentially. And taking everything from the environment and then breaking down and then giving the energy back to the environment as it breaks down. But at the moment, we are sort of consuming everything in our path, which is the natural, and virility, of course, which is the earth, which is the fertile earth, the virile nature. So we have, and then finally, we have vitality itself, the energy, the life force, which of course is transmittable through each evolutionary mode of life. Each species that comes up, is full of vitality at the beginning, reaches a peak and then dies away. And then the final sort of the final most evil symbol in the world, evil in inverted commas, I suppose, is the course. It looks a bit like the whole figure looks a bit like like a lock, of a door, to which you need a key. And if you have the key, you unlock this door. Then instead of being subject to the forces of preservation, creation, and destruction, you either become those forces or you can perfectly direct those forces without anything getting in your way. So you kind of reach godhood, as it were, living. You become a living god if you find the key to this door, which will unlock the gate to power, to godlike powers. But it should be remembered that what basically all you're basically doing is going into another level of the prison. So we might sort of have like a pyramid here, and we're at this kind of level of the prison, the physical prison, if you like, with obstacles and challenges and opportunities, and preservation, creation, and destruction. And you might think, well, I can escape from this. I can become a living god and escape to another level of reality, say the dream level or the astral, and I might actually get loads of power that way. But it's only power that's given to you, well, lent to you. You've got to give it back, number one. And number two, there'll be other obstacles and challenges and opportunities, even on the astral level. So, it's just another level of prison. You're just going from one level of prison to the next level, and so on and so forth, right up, I suppose, to some kind of nearly approaching the spiritual level. And then there's a great big, obviously, great big abyss beyond that. And beyond that, of course, is the non-dualistic world, because of course these two sort of figures here, this kind of the area underneath this ellipse here, and this one here, represent a sort of well, they represent a sphere of influence, but they represent um, duality itself, and or triality almost, because there's kind of there's a kind of energy here. There's an area here. You've got three areas, and then you've got this fourth area, and all these areas, of course, merge into kind of oneness, really, from the point of view of the Demiurge. It's all his territory. It's all his stomping ground, if you like. And beyond this dualistic kind of dualistic world, or the worlds of the Demiurge, you get a great big thing called the abyss, which is a great gap in everything. And beyond that, you get the paradise, or the world of non-duality. And of course, as I already showed, the great symbol, it's got a U shape, which is the soul being captured by the Demiurge and pulled down into the lower worlds, which start about here. And then, of course, having made the best of all possible worlds, the soul, some souls are liberated at the end of beyond death, and go back to oneness with the deity. Um, and I mean, the actual mechanism for that is highly complex, really, and almost one might say, you know, uh, one might say the path itself is dualistic until it gets to a certain level. So this path that we're all on is part of dualism, is part of the dualistic framework of the Demiurge, right up until such time as we go beyond the sort of the abyss and go into the supernal worlds of non-dualism. But a lot of people will get stuck. I mean, a lot of people will find the key to the lock and turn the key and go through the gate and find themselves in another part of the prison, as it were. You don't get out. You only get out by following soul awareness. You only get out through direct spiritual intervention by the non-dualistic deity. And that only happens very occasionally. Otherwise, we're forever just going up and down and up and down in an endless sort of ellipse, really, an ellipse folding back on itself, really. It's one way to look at it. So this is the great seal, the Demiurge. And as I say, to understand the Demiurge is not to judge or to condemn or to hate or to spit upon the Demiurge, or to get all miserable about it. It's the way things are. It is what it is. Like, but it doesn't, it doesn't need to be like that. So ultimately, the formula is nothing matters need not be. Matter ends up as being nothing, and it doesn't have to be like this. It doesn't have to be this way. It can be a spiritual way out of the prison in which the soul is uh, finds itself in. And you become aware of this when you reach soul awareness. You become aware of this great seal of the Demiurge, and but instead of it getting you down, it's a thing. It's against which you are kicking, I suppose, in order to reach an escape velocity, if you like. And I've often used the analogy of the rocket. The rocket, as it burns fuel, it uses Newton's third law of mechanics to reach escape velocity when it goes into space, and it then doesn't have any momentum. It just has the momentum that it had before, and then goes through space at an incredible speed. Because there's nothing in space to stop it, to hinder its velocity, to reduce its velocity. Whereas, of course, in the atmosphere of Earth, there is, of course. Um, so, um, as I said, if you contemplate this great seal of the Demiurge with an open, understanding heart, if you like, rather than just sort of rolling our eyes and and saying, "Oh my God, this is terribly evil." If you look at this objectively, I suppose, rather than emotionally, then it provides you with a framework. Not only for accepting what is, but perhaps also giving you a framework uh, for um, for making that complex journey out of this prison, which is also is incredibly simple as well. So I hope I've kind of introduced you in a rather sort of random kind of way, admittedly, to these concepts that surround the Great Seal, the Demiurge,